Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Wisdom of the Sages. Wisdom of the Sages, it's a daily study of yoga wisdom literature, focusing on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Fantastic for yoga teachers. So if you're a yoga teacher, you can check that box. Or for fantastic for people who just love the culture of yoga and want to add some spiritual direction and upgrade their life. That's what it's about. We really have two choices in this world. In the human species, we can either upgrade or degrade. Isn't that true? With everything we do, you can either upgrade it or you can degrade it. Your conversation can be upgraded conversation or degraded conversation. Your meal, you can say, I feel good. I'm glad I ate that. I'm glad I stopped when I did. Or you can say that famous mantra after you eat, what have I done? Right? So our food can upgrade or degrade us. Our conversation, what else, Mara? All right.
Books we read,
Books we read,
consume, movies we watch, company we keep.
The company we keep can degrade us or upgrade us. That's why I love all of you. That's why I follow Kaustubha around like a little puppy.
Come on.
Because I want him to throw me a bone.
It's like you're chasing my tail, I'm chasing your tail. We're running around in a circle.
Yeah, we're like yin and yang. And today we're at the farm. We have Super Soul teacher training. We got a few early birds for live here. The crew. Show you them. Say hi, crew. All right. I'm not wrecking stuff. Come on, guys. Don't make me do all the work. Anyway. Aditi's here. She's just sleeping in. I say we all march in there and wake up Aditi. She's in the ladies' ashram right now. But some people have never even met until they came here. They only knew each other through Zoom. It's amazing. All the teacher trainings are on Zoom. Or on the podcast, at least. So, Kaustubha.
Yeah.
Shall we dig in? Me and Kaustubha have a mission we're gonna try to finish this chapter today.
Oh, good. And I also, but before we do, I had a nice letter to read.
Please read.
This letter, I just love the letters where people just like, it's kind of their life is changing in positive ways,
Upgrading.
They're upgrading. So this has come from a person named Abraham Stokes.
Good name. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Abraham Stokes, and I'm one of the others. I've been listening to Wisdom of the Sages podcast in order, and I recently got to the one with Ganesham. You remember the one with Ganesham?
That was one. That's what kicked it all off. The Ganesham one.
Yeah, the interviews, right?
He was a Hindu chaplain, helping people leave their body.
Yeah, chaplain at New York Presbyterian Hospital. We interviewed him kind of early on in the lockdown, and he shared so much of how he's helping people, go through, disease and death. Wise person, compassionate person. So he said, I was listening to Wisdom of Sages podcast in order and recently got to the one with Ganesham. I found Bhakti last year in college through a club, but with the COVID crisis, delved into my practice. And now
There's really some
pursuing it.
personality types out there, Kaustubha. Some personality types are like, yeah, I just got into this podcast, so I listened to this one and listened to that one. And there's people like, I gotta start from the beginning and go right through it.
Okay.
Which category are you in?
And it sounds like even here COVID kind of like served a positive, like he found the silver lining and it made him go deeper into this. So he said, I found Bhakti last year in college through a club, but with the COVID crisis delved into my practice and am now pursuing it single-mindedly. Once I heard the interview with Ganesham, I found my calling. I want to be a chaplain around death, helping people change their material shells. I felt so passionately, I changed my major to psychology later that week.
Wow.
Amazing, right? And then he goes on to say, I was wondering if you could reach out to Ganesham so I could talk to him directly about his journey and job as a chaplain. I feel pulled in this direction, but want to gain insight before I dive completely into this journey, as well as gain logistic insight. I'm considering going straight into this career as a chaplain, but wondering if spending some years as a monk after my undergraduate degree would aid me in my service. What sincerity here, huh?
My vote, yes.
I would vote yes too, as long as you can find the right place, right? I'm also wondering.
It's all about the right place.
It's all about the right. I'm also wondering about some logistics, like getting the Master Divinity, which most hospitals require for the spiritual care of patients. Thank you for hosting this podcast. It's changing my life, and it helped attract another devotee. Well, Abraham, thank you so much for sharing that. And just for everyone's information, Ganesham has reached out to Abraham, and they're in contact now. So what a nice story, huh?
That's actually amazing. It's one of those things that, and for everybody listening on Zoom or listening in the other world, is when you start adding Krishna or Bhakti or spiritual life to your life, sometimes your life radically shifts. It's like you're still doing the same sort of things you're doing, but they're applied in a more spiritual way. In one sense, it appears like, well, I'm going to give up this. You're giving like up a penny to get like $1 million. And you still get to, I can see it in my own life. When I first got into Bhakti, I was a musician and I gave it up. I just said, you know what, Krishna, I'm just going to give this up. I know there's a higher calling in there. But I ended up doing it again. I felt like it was fed back to me by Krishna in a more cleaner way. Cleaner for my consciousness, cleaner for my thoughts, more uplifting. You never get cheated in Bhakti. Krishna never cheats you. What he does is he gives you exactly what you need to upgrade your life. And the more we imbibe on a regular basis this information, it's going to happen just like this gentleman. He goes back into the world. He's still going to university. But now he's just a little bit more refined and focused. If you meet someone like Kaustubha's guru, initiating guru, I felt like Tamal Krishna Maharaj, I felt like he could have ran the world. He was one of those guys, he could be like president. He's like his genius brain. He could have had thousands of people work under him. And he just got focused on his spiritual life. And he did the same thing, but in a spiritual community. People were inspired by him. People, he could counsel people, instruct people. He had layers of management. So I really feel like there's no loss in your spiritual life. I mean, look at Mara, perfect example. She's a spiritual chef. Mm-hmm. You get the same thing back, but more refined. All right. What would Kaustubha be? Like Kaustubha, you would be just some thoughtful writer or something.
I don't know what I would be.
Journalist or, professor at some university. No, it's just the same thing.
I never went to college.
No, you would. You would have. You wouldn't have gone to the ashram.
I was definitely not on a path to college.
Be a professor You know, you would have had a bunch of students, but you'd be teaching something maybe mundane. And now you've just dedicated to spirit, and now you're teaching all of us. Cheers!
Anyway, last I checked in before that, I was a bike messenger, so maybe I would have still be doing that. I don't know.
You'd be a damn good bike messenger.
That's right.
You're
That's fast.
You're very fast.
All right, you ready?
Yes, let's dive into this. Let's say our secret mantras. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, whose praise of transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Can you guys
Sounds like those teacher trainer guys are like
They know all the mantras.
yeah,
They know all the mantras. There's like an orchestra of Bhagavatam shlokas going on here.
beautiful.
It's wonderful.
What an
By the way,
inspiring guy Ganesham is, though, huh? I mean, you just think it's just like you just hear one interview with that guy, you want to change your life.
I know. I know. Truthfully, I was thinking about all these people we bring on for the guests. It's a lot of work, just FYI. It's a lot of work to like call people, arrange them to get on. Kaustubha makes the little flyer. And, you know, and after you do one, it's not like it's over. You got to get ready for the next one. But I was reflecting about all the people we brought on. It's just like inspirational people with inspirational stories. And this week, can we announce our guest this week?
Not quite. Yeah, I just need to get the final confirmation.
We
Maybe
really-
before the show ends, I'll be able to.
Oh, really? We really bring it down to the wire. We keep even ourselves on the edge of our seat. But it's great. But anyway, if you'd like to join us live on Zoom, it's Wisdom of the Sages 108@gmail.com, right into Mara, and she will get you the secret codes to get on. And also, because tomorrow is question and answer day, if you got questions, and then Sunday is our very, very special secret guest. Okay, let's dive into the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Now we had a verse that we read the verse, but not the commentary yesterday. But it's this very interesting verse, right?
Very interesting.
Yeah, we're in Canto
22.
1, chapter 17, text 22.
So I'll read the verse. If you read the purport, I'll reread it.
Okay.
The king said, "O you who are in the form of a bull, you know the
Oh,
truth
you.
of." Oh, you.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
you.
you. I don't know, it's just the way that you read it. Oh, you.
Oh, you. You know the truth of religion. When they say religion, they mean dharma, right?
Okay.
You know the truth of religion or dharma, and you are speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of adharmic acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. This is a huge one. This is a very relevant verse. You are no other than the personality of dharma.
So, yes, so now, like, I think, on the surface, that sounds like, what are you talking about? How can, like, someone commits, some kind of, victimizes me in some way? And if I point it out, I'm just as bad as them?
Yeah, come on.
But I think the way that I understand, like the word here used is stanam, which means like situated, in a particular place, right? That you get that the place for the perp, he says the perpetrator, right? The perp is the same place for one who identifies the perp. And let's just read a little commentary and see what it says and discuss.
Hey, Kaustubha, can you now speak a little bit louder? Because I think
you know what happened. We had a little in sound check. I wasn't hooked up to the right mic.
Acha. All right, so now maybe go a little louder.
How's this? If I bring it a little closer,
I think that's better. Go like you're singing, like you're like Frank Sinatra. Bring it right there.
So here we go. So Prabhupada writes, a devotee's conclusion is that no one is directly responsible for being a benefactor or mischief-monger.
I love that
That
word.
word.
Mischief-monger. Bobby Marchand, mischief-monger.
A devotee's conclusion is that no one is directly responsible for being a benefactor or mischief-monger without the sanction of the Lord. Therefore, he does not consider anyone to be directly responsible for such action. So in other words, whether you're my benefactor, whether you're bringing me something pleasant, or whether you're a mischief monger, bringing some little mischief into my life, I understand that he says the devotee, right, the Vaishnava, the Bhakti-yogi, that they are seeing on another level. There's the superficial level, which is a valid level and it must be considered, but the devotee is trying to go deeper still. So it says, but in both cases, he takes it for granted that either benefit or loss is God sent, and thus it is his grace, it is God's grace. So this type of consciousness facilitates deeper levels of spiritual consciousness, right? It's beyond, what were you sharing with us the other day? 3 brothers, what did you call them?
The 3 ugly brothers.
3 ugly brothers. What are their names?
Criticizing, blaming, and complaining. The 3 ugly brothers.
Why
Don't
are they ugly?
invite the 3 ugly brothers over for dinner.
They mess everything up.
What's that?
They mess everything up.
They mess everything up. Truthfully, they make you sad. And sometimes can I share my own little personal story?
Why not? Go, let's hear it.
My personal story was I was a sarcastic jerk in high school. I was just sarcastic, funny, rude, cruel. And generally, because I could make a bunch of people laugh, we were having a conversation last night, because I can make a bunch of people laugh, it was a winning formula for me to keep going. Oh, I'm making them laugh. I'm going to keep doing this. They're endorsing my bad behavior. Now, the only problem was it was at somebody's expense. And after a while, and after I started cultivating my own spiritual life or inner life or becoming a little bit more thoughtful and writing songs, I realized, you know what? I don't want to be this guy. I don't want to be this guy who's just rude and cruel. I'm going to switch so that was the first realization that, like, I shouldn't be criticizing a person. But then I switched it to critiquing culture and society. And that's got its good points. We have to point out flaws. But the problem was, for me, I felt like this is taking me down a path of stinking thinking. Bad thinking. And bad thinking is there's always a problem out there. And what it does is it sharpens your vision to what is wrong. And the problem with that is it condemns your mind to a deep type of sadness, frustration, complaining, misery,
Cynicism.
Whereas in Bhakti, there's a training of the mind of what is good. I'm sitting around, here's Justin. What is right with Justin? Now, it's very normal in my conditioned state to say, well, Justin's got all these issues. I know him. You don't know him. I got all these issues. And Bob Healy's here. And Bob's got all these issues. And my mind tends to go right there to people. What are they doing wrong? We do this in relationships all the time. We do this to people we love. We do this to people who would do anything for us, our husbands, our wives, our kids sometimes. What are they doing wrong? And I become, in the name of parenting, I become the person who points out all this person's faults. And then the interesting thing, you do that with your kids enough, it's not like they hate you. They hate themselves. So this is a huge thing, this type of bad thinking. And for me, when I got into Bhakti, I started having a shift of what is not wrong out there, but bringing it home to what is wrong with me and how I can correct it. Because I know I'm part of the collective. And when I change who I am, the collective will radically change. What do you think about that, Kaustubha?
I think it's such an important point that you're making. And really, I think you are, and I think you do this really well in so many ways, Raghunath, but you in a very practical way, you're explaining really how to take the spiritual life deeper, right? Because what are we all doing here on Wisdom of the Sages, right? We're all getting together. The Zoomers are all waking up early, and unless they're from Europe, and then they got a break, right? But people are spending their time, sacrificing.
Never
their time.
given those Europeans any credit, are we?
but in any case, whether you're in America or Europe or India or wherever you're tuning in from, you're sacrificing your time to hear this, and because we want to not just take spiritual life on some kind of superficial level, but to go really deeper, so that it not only becomes our external thing. I'm a spiritual guy. I wear the spiritual clothes. I quote a few spiritual things. It's part of my external identity. But actually, we want it to become transformative. We want to actually go to deeper states of realization in life, deeper states of happiness in life, deeper states of service in life, and that's only going to happen when we begin to interpret the things that happen to us in life in a different way, in a deeper way. And so although it's saying that it sounds a little crazy on the superficial level, one is going to say, well, one who points out someone who did the wrong is not the same as the one who did the wrong. But then, and on one level that's true, but on a deeper level, one has to look at it deeper and say that my consciousness is on the same level, like it's still on the same superficial level. If I say, hey, that person, is doing me, if I'm absorbed there, rather than going deeper and saying there are deeper reasons, there's the direct causes and then there's the indirect causes, the behind it. And so now I'm moving through life interpreting everything as that God sent it to me. And rather than being caught on the superficial level where I'm prone to, blame, complain.
Three ugly brothers?
Yeah. Blame.
Criticizing, blaming, complaining.
Yeah. Complaining, blaming, criticizing.
Well, we got to figure out what's the order. What sounds better?
I think
criticizing, blaming, complaining, because those rhyme.
Yeah, but I think that rhymes
blaming,
better
complaining,
first.
criticizing. Blame,
complain,
criticizing, blame. I don't know.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Okay. It's a Shakespeare said it. Everybody says it. Everybody says it. It's not what happened. It's how I interpret what happens. It's not what happened. It's how I interpret what happens. Right?
What did Shakespeare say?
Shakespeare said something like that.
Okay.
Anybody got
He
Shakespeare?
had a lot of books. It's gonna be hard to find.
Yeah, a lot. And someone's like, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou? What happened? Something.
So let's read on here. In case of benefit, no one will deny that it's God sent. I'd imagine some would, but okay. In case of benefit, no one will deny that it's God sent. But in case of loss or reverses, one becomes doubtful about how the Lord could be so unkind to his devotee as to put him in great difficulty. Now,
It's the famous, thank God. Something good happened. Thank God. Yeah. Something bad happens. Why me?
Yeah.
That's unfair.
Well, he's going to share an extreme example now of someone who transcended that. Jesus Christ was seemingly put into such great difficulty, being crucified by the ignorant, but he was never angry at the mischief-mongers. Right?
Jesus was crucified by mischief-mongers.
Yeah, that is the way of accepting a thing, either favorable or unfavorable. Thus, for a devotee, the identifier is equally a sinner, like the mischief-monger. So the way that I understand this, not necessarily equal in terms of the morality of their actions, but equal in terms of the depth of their jnana, the depth of their knowledge or their insight, right? Both are just on that external, superficial level. But then the wise person, the sage, wants to go deeper, wants to interpret it more deeply, interpret it on a level of depth that leads to transformation. Right? By God's grace, the devotee tolerates all reverses. Maharishi Parikshit observed this, and therefore he could understand that the bull was no other than the personality of Dharma himself. In other words, a devotee has no suffering at all Remember, we were going back to that. I think it was on Saturday that we said, Jayadvaita Swami said, what do you have to give up? You give up suffering, right? In other words, a devotee has no suffering at all, because so-called suffering is also God's grace for a devotee who sees God in everything. Seeing God. You're muted, Raghu. Sorry.
Just screaming at the
I
computer.
see you emoting over here.
It's a better way to see the world. It's a better theory. It's a better theory on the world. If something happens that's problematic, I say, you know what? Krishna's given me special mercy. It's a better way to interpret what's going on.
Throughout Bhagavad Gita, throughout Bhagavatam, throughout the Mahabharata, and so it's instructing us that we need to go to this deep. The sage sees God everywhere, right? And as long as we're into blame, complain, criticize, when we're living in that world, when we're absorbed in that world, and again, it's not saying that you can't necessarily point out someone that did something wrong, but the point is we get lost in that world, right? We operate commonly on that level of just complaining. That level of consciousness will not reveal deeper truths, and it will not facilitate one's recognizing God in everything and everyone. And that's the stage that yoga is meant to bring one to.
Well, these three ugly brothers, they have kids. And the oldest kid is resentment. And resentment, from resentment, that is a shutdown of access to spiritual life. Once I carry that resentment, and it's important. That's why even the 12-step recovery group, they have that whole thing of this moral inventory where you go through your life, where you've hurt people, where you've gone wrong, and making amends to people. Because what will happen is otherwise I sit with resentment sometimes for years. And first of all, you can't blame your way to a better future. Right? If I'm living in blame, you can't blame you're going to live with that, and that blame is going to affect tomorrow and this week and this year and forever. And the question is, when's it going to end? I'm just going to always carry that resentment with me. It's a massive problem because it really pushes divinity out of our life. It pushes wisdom out of our life. It pushes knowledge and truth away from our life. And it pushes sweet baby Krishna out of our life, because it's almost like we're putting up our own walls to let divinity in. So this is a huge one. And I think I'm sure this is why it's part of that 12 steps recovery thing, is you got to go through your heart. Who am I resentful to? And I got to let go of that. And I have to see them as being instruments. Even someone who screwed with me, or a bad father, bad mother, bad brother, bad uncle, people. And we have to start to forgive. And we have to see that it wasn't an isolated instance where I was hurt or beaten or robbed, but there was some lesson buried in there, woven in there, or some type of something happened that, and it's the meaning we put on it again, that is supposed to make me great. Right? There's something happened that is supposed to make me great. Because sometimes people tell some very horrible story of something that happened. That is supposed, and the best way I can understand these things is when you overcome what happened and bring it out the other side, that's going to be the autobiography that's going to change the world. We are waiting for that novel, that major motion picture. You have to get really focused in where it has brought you. And maybe it just brought you to your knees, where you're surrendering to God. But we've all had something happen, and there's a divine hand in there to bring us higher and higher and higher. And in retrospect, we'd say, well, you know what? I never want that to happen again, and I get that. But there is not a randomness in this material world of what happened. We use that analogy of the, let's call it the embroidery. Tapestry, a tapestry with all the beautiful colors, the tapestry of the waterfall and the jungle and the pool of water and the duck, right? And it's very, very wonderful until you flip that tapestry over, and then you have random threads. And if you were to look at that tapestry from reverse, it'd be like, what the hell is that? what are all these threads doing here? They seem so random, and they're not random. Those apparent random threads are because I'm seeing it from the vantage point of reverse. When I put it around, when I have the full understanding of what that tapestry is, all those random threads make sense. In the same way, these peculiar life reversals, these potholes, these ditches we fall into, or these anvils that drop on our head in the material world, they're not random. They're part of some master plan for our evolution. And the Bhagavatam pushes us to get that vantage point again and again and again. Right down to the first canto when Vidura is seeing, oh, I understand. They're kicking me out of the kingdom. I'm going to accept this as Krishna. I'm not going to even blame Dhritarashtra for kicking me out of the kingdom. I'm going to see that Krishna has used Dhritarashtra to help me now leave the kingdom and go on pilgrimage. This is a divine hand. And it's hard to see that in the thick of the thin. But that's why we have community to assist us through those very troubled times or painful times of chronic sickness, of broken heart, of being robbed, of being hurt, of being cheated, etc. And I can say for myself, I still need to hear this regularly, because I can default to the why me mantra, which is the mantra of the person materially engrossed.
Right. You know, I like the way that you put it, and I like thinking of it as like there's a strategy in life. We got a goal in life that we're working towards. I want to be that kind of person that has the deeper spiritual insight. I want to be that person that has an even mind under changing externals, and who's therefore able to absorb the mind deeply in spiritual transformation. You know, I want to see God everywhere and in everyone. Well, if that's my goal, then I should understand that this is the way that it works, that's going to be challenged. And by working through the challenges, that's how I'm going to get there. I'm not going to get, God says, it's like we make that determination, and God says, okay, well, let me provide the circumstances by which you can cultivate that. Now, if you look at the lives of all the great saints, even all the different spiritual traditions, right? Prabhupada used the example of Jesus Christ here. Look what he went through. You go through all the different, stories like in, say, in our own tradition, Haridas Thakur, right? There's so many, Tukaram, whatever.
We gotta tell the story of Haridas Thakur one of these days.
In September, maybe even this year, because everything's a little early, maybe in August is his disappearance day. Why don't we do a special Haridas Thakur day?
All right, let's do that.
But it's always that they get criticized and sometimes physically, beaten, by people that don't understand them, by people that fear them, by people that, have no clue about how special they are. And always in the lives of all the great saints, there's always that, they don't blame, they don't criticize, they accept it without any hostility towards the perp, So we should understand.
Thakur. I'm going to just give a spoiler. Haridas Thakur was beaten in how many marketplaces? 14 marketplaces?
21 marketplaces.
Beaten. And he the governor or whoever was in charge of the town, he was ordered to be beaten because he was a Muslim that started chanting the holy name. And he would say, listen, there's one God, and I'm just glorifying God. And if you think I'm going to stop doing that, you're crazy. Why would I ever stop glorifying God? If you want to beat my body, beat my body. And so they just said, okay, we're going to make a public spectacle out of you. And they would beat him. And they'd bring it to the marketplace because that's where people would gather, like almost like we do the stockades, like in old New England. So they bring him to a marketplace. But after the 14th marketplace, they started feeling like, this guy's not dying. And every time we beat him, he's just sort of like, he was like happy. He was like joyful. How could he be joyful? He's getting beaten with a stick. And then finally, the perpetrator started realizing, especially in India at this time, there's so many saints and mystics and sadhus. So they're realizing, maybe this guy is like some mystic. Maybe he is some holy person. And so they started complaining, like, we were ordered to kill you and beat you. But now if we don't kill you, we're going to be killed. And Haridas Thakur just looked at him and he goes, oh, they're going to kill you? If I don't die, then I will die immediately. And he had this mystic city where he could just stop his heart from beating and appear completely dead. And he just died. And they thought, oh, I think we had killed him. Okay, let's get rid of him. And they threw his body in the Ganga. And then after a while, he just came back to consciousness, doggy paddled to the shore. I don't know if he doggy paddled, but I always imagined him doggy paddling to the shore. Quite amazing. Not of the body, and feeling compassion for who can do that? Feel compassion for the ones who are perpetrating you? It's actually quite, you have to be out of this body and out of this world. And truthfully, my big sad realization with COVID was I'm still materially engrossed, and it stinks. Because I remember when it was all going down and Trader Joe's had no food in the store, and I was in deep panic. And I was like, Kaustubha, what are you doing? Kaustubha's like, everything's fine. It's all going to work out. Take time. He's like Stita D. Mooney, and I am just like losing my marbles. And it makes me realize like, oh, I get this thing. I am at the bottom of the Empire State Building, and I've got to climb all these stairs. And maybe even the Empire State Building is too low. You know, I feel like I feel like lately, especially I just got sick a few weeks ago, and I just like when my body and mind get disturbed, I don't do good. I'm no Haridas Thakur. I'm no Jesus Christ.
It's okay, Rob.
I got work to do.
You're
I got
doing
work
great.
to do. I need help. I need to
I'm
fast
trying to
track.
follow in your footsteps, you know.
Follow.
Elizabeth
My
sending you a
dear.
little heart there. There you go. But you know, yeah, I also like to, you know, sometimes the sports analogies work too. You know, like you just kind of look at your own spiritual path, kind of like did you play much sports, Raghu, when you were a kid? For the basketball team, that's been established.
Too short for basketball team. Too puny for football. I did jiu-jitsu when I was older.
You didn't play any team sports.
Well, I did in my neighborhood because I was a big kid. I played with kids much younger than me. It made me the star.
Okay.
Look at this big ape.
You're like Kramer doing jujitsu with all the little kids.
Taekwondo. I remember that episode.
So, but you know, like when you have a strategy as a team, you kind of try to foresee the challenges that you're going to be put through. Hey, you know, they're going to double team you, you know, and so when this happens, you're ready for it. You know, like you go into the challenge kind of already prepared, understanding that these challenges are going to come, you know, and then when they come, you're mentally prepared for them. You're not like upset or disturbed, but you're like, yeah, well, this was the challenge that's coming, and now I'm ready to deal with it. And so if we are getting serious about our spirituality, then we should just understand this is what's going to happen. People are going to start to criticize you, right? People are going to start to find fault with you. People might even, especially because, you know, like, quite frankly, you know, when it comes to like Bhakti, a lot of it had a very kind of missionary kind of, you know, a missionary feel to it, you know, like share this with everyone, you know?
Right.
And once you start to do that.
That's also naturally when you get into something that you love, even if it's rock climbing, you share, I went rock climbing. You know, people, when they fall in love with something, they want to share it anyway. But yes.
So you see that in this tradition, you with Haridas Thakur, you see that in the Christian, you know, you look at Jesus, you look at every disciple, you know, all the apostles. We were talking about that a couple of weeks ago or something like that. They were all crucified, practically all of them, crucified upside down. They were just like hunted down. They were like, you know.
I wonder if that's worse, getting crucified upside down, you think?
It's bad either way. But the point being is that we should know that the way that God works is he's going to send these challenges, and your way of progress is to work through them and to embrace, you know, follow in the footsteps of these great souls, you know, with tolerance, with humility, ultimately with divine love, you know, that one sees even the perp rather than point my finger. So that's you know, that's where I was kind of getting originally, is that if we want to get really spiritual, if we want to make this the goal of our life, then we've got to get off that surface. Even if that surface or superficial level is true, even if this person did do this to me and it's not justified, as long as I'm deeply absorbed in that blame, complain, criticize, then I'm not going to get to those deeper levels of spirituality, which is what this is, which I could have gained through this circumstance. It could have been a springboard. It could have been an opportunity for me to cultivate that deeper spiritual awareness, but I chose not to take it, you know? So going into the game, right, we should know, okay, I should expect to be criticized. I should be even attacked, you know? I mean,
Right.
I guess even attacked. And how will I respond? Will I be ready for it? And will I respond in following the footsteps of these great souls? Now, listen to this end of this commentary, and I think this is really important. It says, the cow and the bull never, so that's Dharma and the earth, right? They never placed any complaint before the king. Even Kali is standing right there, right? This horrible,
Obvious perpetrator.
obvious perpetrator, you know, personification of quarrel and hypocrisy, you know, in the false dress of a protector. And the cow and the bull never placed any complaint before the king for being tortured by the personality of Kali, although everyone lodges such complaints before the state authorities. The extraordinary behavior of the bull made the king conclude that the bull was certainly the personality of Dharma, for no one else could understand the finer intricacies of the codes of Dharma, or the codes, it says the codes of religion or the codes of Dharma, right? Unless you become, in a sense, a personification of Dharma. And that'll be reflected through how you interpret the difficult circumstances in your life. Will you go to blame, complain, criticize, or will you go to that deeper level? And he was seeing that the bull went to that deeper level, and therefore he identified that as, this is a person that understands spirituality. This is the personification of Dharma, because look how they responded to this difficulty in life.
Mara, today, no blaming, complaining, or criticizing any of your workers. Okay? They're messing up in the kitchen. Nothing. Zip it. Nothing. Nein. Nicht. Nehi.
Okay. Now, if we're going to finish this chapter, we're going to have to start moving, Rugby. You ready? Why don't you start pumping them out?
Okay.
Pumping out the verse.
Okay, I'm not going to complain about that. I'm just
Okay.
going to do it. Ready? Text 22. No,
Text 23.
23. Thus, it is concluded that the Lord's energies are inconceivable. No one can estimate them by mental speculation or word jugglery. Such a good one. Comes up with these word jugglery. In the age of Satya, truthfulness, your 4 legs were established by the 4 principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. But it appears that 3 of your legs are broken due to rampant adharma, or irreligion, adharma, in the form of pride, lust, and intoxication. You are now standing on 1 leg only, which is your truthfulness, and you are somehow or other hobbling along. But quarrel personified, the age of Kali. This age of Kali, by the way, is the age of quarrel. And this is quarrel personified, is flourishing by deceit and is also trying to destroy that leg. The burden of the earth was certainly, this is text 26, the burden of the earth was certainly diminished by the personality of Godhead and by others as well. When he was present as an incarnation, all good was performed because of his auspicious footprints. Kaustubha, you have auspicious footprints too.
No, I don't. My footprints are very
You
ordinary.
have very nice feet, I've noticed.
What are you
I want to
talking
share that with the community. I've seen his feet barefoot, and they're quite auspicious looking.
about? Thank you.
Mine are like a gorilla's. Don't even look at my feet. You will like look at them and be sad.
Your feet are very dear to me, Raghunath.
They're not. They're not. You got to take a good look at my feet one day. They're like massive, like an 8 foot.
Prabhupada once, you know, I remember Prabhupada once, he noticed one of his disciples' feet. He said, "You have very nice feet. Your mother must have been a very attractive woman. Is that true?" And he said, "Yes, Prabhupada, you're right."
Interesting.
Prabhupada saw some connection.
He was a foot reader, Prabhupada. He read everything.
Yeah. Anyway.
Marish Prickett, who could fight with 1,000 enemies single-handedly? Mara, what's the translation for that? A person who could fight with 1,000. Don't look down. Look at me. He's looking
right here, right here.
I want to know right there. What does it mean when you can fight 1,000 on one? Don't say it, Damodar Priya.
waiting on the chat board. Come on, people, help me out.
Maharati, a Maharati.
Maharati.
Maharati fight 1,001.
Devaki Nandan knew it.
Right. Yeah. These Maharatis, they were like superheroes. They were just trained in like mystic warfare. And
What's the next level, Rob? We'll put you on the hot seat.
what's that?
After the
Maharati?
Yeah.
What's after Maharati?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of Ratis. Huh? Attarati?
Yeah.
Attarati?
Is that 1,000?
I don't know.
10,000?
Millennia Rati? Milarati?
Megarati.
There is different levels of Ratis, of fighters.
Okay.
And Ekrati is one can only fight one-on-one. I know that.
All right.
Here's a good trivia question. Who was the one person on the Kurus who was an Ekrati? Everyone else was Maharatis, all the Dhritarashtra's kids.
Was it?
Think about it.
Well, my guess would be: is he mentioned in the first chapter?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Yeah, but it's slipping my mind.
Got this? Got this, Mara?
No.
Okay. Vikarna.
Vikarna.
Vikarna. Aravind didn't get that. Come on, Aravind!
Vikarna. All right, let's keep moving, Rob, if we're going to be...
Sorry. When the personality of Kali understood that the king was willing to kill him, he at once abandoned the dress of a king and, under pressure of fear, completely surrendered to him, bowing his head. Maharaj Prickett, text 30, who was qualified to accept surrender and worthy of being sung in history, did not kill the poor surrendered and fallen Kali, but smiled compassionately, for he was kind to the poor. So here is Kali doing some evil things, but he fully surrendered, and Maharaj Prickett was being kind and understanding. Like, this guy's a wreck. This guy's a train wreck, but he's like surrendering, even if he's surrendering out of fear.
Yeah, his punishment was never coming from a place of his own issues, right? He was coming from a place to protect others, and when Kali surrendered, then he said, okay, he was immediately able to let go.
It's the justice meets mercy thing, balance, that scale, which could sort of go against my death penalty theory we were talking about the other day. Okay, if the personality of Kali, Adharma, is allowed to act as a man god or an executive head, certainly all adharmic principles like greed, falsehood, robbery, incivility, treachery, misfortune, cheating, quarrel, and vanity will abound. Therefore, O friend of Adharma, you do not deserve to remain in a place where experts perform yagyas, or sacrifices, according to truth and dharmic principles for satisfaction of the personality of Godhead. So wherever there is some type of dharma going on, spiritual cultivation going on, Kali is not welcome. This
pushes
Kali
it out. Yeah.
Huh?
Pushes it out.
Pushes it out, pushes it away. In all sacrificial ceremonies. By the way, you could call this Zoom group or this podcast a sacrificial ceremony. Like I said, don't mistake sacrificial ceremony for a Santeria thing where you're cutting the head off a chicken and sprinkling blood. That's not what we mean by sacrificial ceremony. It means
sacred.
like, right? Sacred. Sacrificial, sacred.
Yes.
Sacrament. In all sacrificial ceremonies, although sometimes a demigod is worshipped, the personality of Godhead is worshipped because he is the super soul of everyone and exists both inside and outside like the air. Thus, it is only he who awards welfare for the worshiper. It's good. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the personality of Kali, thus being ordered by Maharaj Prickett, began to tremble in fear. Seeing the king before him like Yamaraj, ready to kill him, Kali spoke to the king as follows. Let's hear what Kali says. Oh, your majesty, though I may live anywhere and everywhere under your order, I shall but see you with bow and arrows wherever I look. Therefore, O chief amongst the protectors of Dharma, please fix some place for me where I can live permanently under the protection of your government. So Kali personified is going to find a place to live.
Where does Kali live?
Where does Kali live? Vegas, maybe?
Sounds like it after you start to read these verses. Yes.
Going to Vegas with
Vegas is exactly where he's at.
Right? Although there's some great souls in Vegas that listen to the show.
Yeah, well.
The personality of Kali asked for something.
Sudha
Sudha
Goswami
Goswami said, Maharaj Pricket, thus being petitioned by the personality of Kali, gave him permission to reside in places where gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter are performed. Those are problematic places. I spent time in Reno.
Did you?
I did. I've lived many lives, Mara. Spent some time in
You
Reno.
don't know when Raghu was a car dealer in Reno?
Blackjack dealer. No, you know what's interesting about Reno? People work at the casinos and they gamble everything away as soon as they get their paycheck. Not everybody, of course, but it's a thing. There are a lot of gambling addicts in Reno.
Yeah.
Drinking, prostitution, animal slaughter. Yeah, it's all happening
So
in Reno.
that's what goes on. You get a steak, you get a prostitute, you gamble, and what's the other one? That's what AC, Atlantic City or Vegas.
Air conditioning. Yeah, I was like, air conditioning is
Air
bad, isn't
conditioning's
it?
out too. It's evil.
Wherever there's air conditioning, Kali shows up. You should just suffer in the heat. Oh, man.
Okay.
You got 5 minutes. I want to finish this.
Yeah.
Kali resides. Oh, Krishna. Thus, the personality of Kali, by the directions of Maharaj Pricket, the son of Uttara, was allowed to live in those 5 places. What are those 5 places again?
Where I think did you skip 39?
I skipped 39, sorry. The personality of Kali asked for something more. Give me more. Because of his begging, the king gave him permission to live where there is gold. Because wherever there is gold is also falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity. Isn't that interesting? Wherever there is gold, there's also falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity.
All of this is just going back to the if you want to just boil this all down. Simplicity and kindness. That these are the basic fundamental, dispositions of the yogi. And without them, our consciousness goes darker and the finer spiritual consciousness doesn't arise. Right. So whether it be through wealth or
Sanatan Goswami's story about who's had some gold.
Or someone, he had the touchstone that could turn.
No. The one where he had some gold and he stayed overnight at some inn.
Oh, right. Well,
he said, get rid of the gold, but his associate held on. He got rid of the gold except for one gold coin. Yeah. And the innkeeper was like a mystic and said, you paid me all in gold. He goes, I knew that you had that gold and I was going to kill you and take that gold by force. So he said, yes, this gold you're carrying, Sanatana Goswami said, this gold you're carrying is a death knell. I love that word, death knell. All right? Because it's you have something of value. Yeah. There's people out there that want to kill you for it. Isn't that crazy to think?
It's true.
They want to kill you for money. Okay, such a horrible...
But we got to keep moving here, Rob.
Sorry. Just push me along. The personality of Kali for something more. Okay, he gave him permission to live where there is gold. Okay. Thus, the personality of Kali, by the directions of Maharaj Pricket, the son of Uttara, was allowed to live in those 5 places. Therefore, whoever desires progressive well-being, especially kings, religionists, public leaders, brahmanas, swamis, sannyasis, should never come in contact with these 4 above mentioned adharmic principles.
Okay, so let's see if we have time to read the commentary of this. Why don't you read through the next few verses? And
no time!
If we keep going, we might have time.
You want to read the purport?
No, I said let's finish the chapter and we'll maybe read from the purport.
Thereafter, the king reestablished the lost legs, or the personality of religion, the bull. And by encouraging activities, he sufficiently improved the condition of earth. The most fortunate emperor, Maharaj Pricket, who was entrusted with the kingdom of Hastinapur by Maharaj Yudhisthira, when he desired to retire to the forest, is now ruling the world with great success due to his being glorified by the deeds of the kings of the Kuru dynasty. Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu, is so experienced that by dint of his expert administration and patronage, it has been possible for you to perform a sacrifice such as this.
So that was, he's speaking to the sages. That's Sutta speaking to the sages, the Naimisharanya, right?
Who are having this big ceremony.
Yeah. So let's just go back to that text 41, where it said that, you know, if you want to be any kind of spiritual leader, public leader, religious person, brahmana, renunciate, sannyasi, then you really have to be careful about what you contact, right? Therefore, whoever desires progressive well-being, especially kings, religions, public leaders, brahmanas, and sannyasis, should never come in contact with the four above-mentioned irreligious principles. Now, those are the principles that when one is initiated into the Gaudiya Vaishnava lineage, right, into this particular lineage of, and you know, it's similar, it's always going to be similar, whether it's the yamas and niyamas and Ashtanga yoga or whatever. But that if you want to go deeper into spiritual life, you need to begin to regulate it.
Yeah, it's true that it's any lineage. Even different traditions around the world will sort of have some take on these type of things. Why? Because they're guardrails to keep you on your spiritual track. So every spiritual path will have it. What to speak of these Vedic paths, of course.
And in our particular path, because it's based so firmly on Bhagavatam, the four vows that we would take at the time of initiation are directly related to those four. So Prabhupada writes, the brahmanas and the religious preceptors for all other castes, and the sannyasis are the spiritual masters for all castes and orders of society. So also are the king and the public leaders who are responsible for the material welfare of all people. The progressive religionists are dharmic people, and those who are responsible human beings, or those who do not want to spoil their valuable human lives, should refrain from all the principles of adharma, especially illicit connection with women. And what it's saying there, it's saying that if you see, and this is of course speaking to men, but it's saying that if men see women not as personifications, as commodities, right, then your consciousness is going to go straight down. You're not going to be able to lead anyone. You know, you won't be able to progressively help yourself or others. If a brahmana is not truthful, all his claims as a brahmana at once become null and void. It's not based on birth. It's based on your qualities and your behavior. If a sannyasi is illicitly connected with women, all his claims as a sannyasi at once become false. Similarly, if the king and the public leader are unnecessarily proud or habituated to drinking and smoking, certainly they become disqualified to discharge public welfare activities. Truthfulness is the basic principle for all dharma. The four leaders of the human society, namely the sannyasis and the brahmanas, the king and the public leader, must be tested crucially by their character and qualification.
You know what? I want to tease this one out tomorrow. Can we go back to tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow is our question and answer day, and then we have the interview day, and then we can come back to it if you want to come. We'll come back.
You know what? It's a lot. I want to unpack this.
Let's unpack it. We'll unpack it on Monday.
We'll unpack it on Monday. And now, teacher training starts. And we're going to sing songs together. What do you say? Woo! Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thanks to all the others out there floating around, spying on us. Kaustubha, thank you for your association. Mara, thanks for all your help. Thanks for all the Zoomies. I'm going to change them to Zoomies instead of Zoomers. I like that better. Thanks for all the people I didn't get to say goodbye. Look at the live. They're like, what are you guys doing?
Dancing?
Aditi's here. Aditi showed up. She brought me a cup of chai.
Nice.
Thanks for everybody joining late. I didn't say good morning to Yaitza Lopez and Liam and Mark Zarito and Rachel and Ananta and Tom from Cleveland.